that of all of the employees at FEMA, everyone is absolutely working their hardest to do everything they can to bring all the federal
We've had concern. We're going to continue to monitor, but right now, as I will tell you, everything we're getting back from the sampling that we're doing is below background levels. There is not a reason for the general public to be concerned.
County, Rudy Giuliani with 9/11 leadership failures while he was mayor.
To replace the defective radios with new defective radios. Firefighters had 56 minutes after the first call and 29 minutes after the second order to get out. While all police officers left the building, 121 firefighters never made it out.
The union also attacked Giuliani on his decision to put his communications center right there at the World Trade Center, even after it had been bombed in 1993 by Al-Qaeda.
There is some evidence that the FBI may have known of the plot in advance through an informant and might even have stopped the bombing that killed 6 people.
And his decision to pull firefighters off search and rescue after $200 million in gold was recovered from the site. We'll get to all those points.
This is very difficult for our members. You know, we are very much like the military. We never leave our own on the battlefield. And plus our concern was not to leave any of those lost on that day in that
Well, how many
site.
do you think are left behind, roughly? How many guys haven't been accounted for?
Well, certainly that there are scores of our members that still have not been accounted for. But the point is...
You mean if you were to dig through the dumps, to be very blunt about this, for people watching, I'm sorry, but this is a political charge you got to deal with. You're saying if you went through the dumps, you'd find skeletons of people?
Unfortunately, there are remains that would be found in the dumps, and unfortunately, there are remains that are still part of that site, and they were continued. We continued to find them and discover them up until a few months ago. The point is, though, I've got to make this point. The point is that when Rudy Giuliani decided to go from recovery to full excavation, it was within 24 hours after they recovered the $230 million of gold and silver bars in the Bank of Nova Scotia's vault. It was within 24 hours, 8 weeks into that incident, that he decided that the incident was too dangerous for firefighters. That was what we protested
What do you mean?
against.
I don't get this. What's the connection between finding $200 million in gold and stopping the search for bodies?
Because in my opinion, it was more important for him to find the gold than it was to continue to find
and recover
remains. No, he found the gold on October 31st. And on November 1st is when he issued the order to remove the firefighters from their recovery mode.
Well, explain that, because I can't figure that connection out. What is the connection?
Well, the connection is that he was in full recovery mode as they continued to sift and look for those assets, in addition to the dignified recovery that our members were looking for.
Because there's so much money out there, gold out there, they didn't want to take the time to go through the remains carefully anymore. They wanted to go look and make sure they got all the gold.
When they retrieved the assets, I can tell you what the facts are. The facts are that on October 31st, the Brinks armored trucks loaded the gold out of that site, and the next day is when the mayor issued the order to move the firefighters off the pile and discontinue with the recovery mode and go to full excavation.
Because he thought there was more money out there somewhere? There's more gold?
No, because he wanted to get the site cleaned up on his watch, because he was getting pressure from lower Manhattan businesses.
Oh, you're saying he only kept the search going long enough to get the gold?
Well, there's no question about it.
Yeah, so everybody got used.
Melee between New York City firefighters and police officers.
You know what? I was here when the building came down. I don't need somebody, a fireman, to push my face.
No way. We apologize for him. We don't want that.
What begins as a peaceful demonstration.
Bring him out!
Firefighters protesting that the city is no longer interested in recovering victims' remains from Ground Zero quickly turns to an ugly confrontation, a disgrace to the department, say the city's fire and police commissioners.
We didn't anticipate that they would punch police officers in the face. Violate the law.
Bernard Kerik was hailed as a hero for his work on 9/11 by then Mayor Rudy Giuliani's side.
U.S. Attorney Michael Garcia is expected to announce federal tax fraud charges, among other possible counts, against Bernie Kerik. The former police commissioner has been under criminal investigation for some time now. As you know, he worked under Rudy Giuliani during 9/11.
Yeah, so everybody got used.
Piece of film that shortly never got reshowed on TV after 9/11 either was when the firemen were revolting against Giuliani sicking the cops on.
Yeah.
I was there.
You know, sort of like Building 7 went away.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that because I was there when, you know, the police and the firemen were having a really hard time down there by Ground Zero. I mean, it got really ugly for a while. You know, but what's interesting is that even if Christine Todd Whitman did misspeak, you know, it doesn't change the fact that you've got guys who are first responders who have, you know, who've received awards, who have been given flags from, you know, by the president and all this sort of thing.
Under a beam, I saw this enormous swatch of red, and I was like, oh my God, we got a lady underneath this beam. When we started digging, then came out a white stripe, and go, oh my God, it's a flag. It wound up being the flag that was flying on the World Trade Center as it came down. The flag got carried into the Olympics, and all of a sudden, the whole stadium, and I guess the whole world, went silent. And I looked there and I said, that's my flag. And I was proud to be an American. What I want to ask Congress is, why are they leaving us like this? We're just as American as everybody else.
The heroes, the firemen, the police, the military folks, the volunteers, the sanitation workers, all the people who were trying to get Lower Manhattan back up and running are on their own there. And the society and the government has abandoned them.
As I'm stopping that truck driver doesn't see me. That piece of steel's falling. I don't want to get hit by the truck. I jump out of the way. The piece of steel catches my foot. It's roughly estimated at about 8,000 pounds. I took my shoe off. The guy next to me fainted. I took a belt off of him. I made a tourniquet. And the bottom of my foot from the crush split my foot open where it was compound fractures. You know, thinking about this is hard.
And they're being denied access to any of the 9/11 funds. They're being denied health care. I mean, what kind of proof is required? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, even if they did misspeak.
In other words, lie.
Right.
Well, you know, when I tell people that there was in place on 9/11 the continuity of government, and Congress didn't find out about it until after 9/11, that basically they would have all been replaced with, let's face it, non-elected people. People thought I made that stuff up. Do you want to talk a little bit about continuity of government?
Sure. Continuity of government started under the Carter administration with Brzezinski, and basically what it does is it puts America under a state of martial law and suspends the Constitution. It continued up under Reagan and then through Bush and continued development, and then it was made famous with Oliver North being asked about Rex 84 and continuity of government, and that clip's actually in the movie I just put out. And it comes up through Clinton, so he was on board with it as well, and it went into effect on 9/11, and during that, Rumsfeld and Cheney go missing for like 15 minutes. There's all sorts of crazy things that really aren't talked about on the news.
So what you see from my side is a big orange explosion and debris, fire and debris raining down, and I've got the top down, and at the same time that it's registering that that's not an accident from that, I see flashes going off in World Trade Center 6, which was, you know, as you come to learn later, the U.S. Customs House and the Department of Labor, and that there's a big crater that goes through that all the way down into the subway. So anyway, that's Building 6. So at that point, I panicked because I had never seen anything like it. I had never considered being in the middle of some crazy thing, but when you see this, and then you see that, and then you see this, right then I knew I didn't know what was going on, and that I should remove myself from the situation because I'm not safe. And it seems that no one here is safe, and there's nothing I can do. And if I stay here, I'm going to get pinned in, and I'm going to be buried in debris. So that's when I removed myself from the situation. Now, fast forward a month, and come to October, when you finally start to, I mean, the fires at Ground Zero are still burning, right? Talking about October, 30 days later, and you're still seeing first responders being hurt, and you're still seeing like all this